Something is happening right now that millions of people with ties to Iran, students, families, professionals, green card holders, need to understand immediately. The United States and Iran are not just in a diplomatic standoff anymore. As of today, April 2026, the two countries are in an active state of war. And what that means for visas, immigration, and the ability of Iranian nationals to enter the United States, or stay here, has changed more dramatically in the last few months than it has in decades. This video is going to walk you through everything. What happened, what the US government has actually done to visa policy, what is happening at the border right now, and what you need to know if you or someone you love has any connection to Iran and any stake in their immigration status. Let's start at the beginning. In late December 2025, protests began in Iran, initially sparked by the country's deteriorating economy and rising inflation, spreading across all 31 of Iran's provinces. By early January 2026, those protests had become the largest since the Iranian Revolution. On January 8th, following a call from Iran's exiled crown prince, people across Iran poured into the streets and began shouting from their windows in nationwide demonstrations. The government responded by blocking the internet and cutting international telephone calls, an attempt to isolate the country of 85 million people from the outside world. The security crackdown that followed killed thousands and resulted in the detention of tens of thousands more. The United States was watching. On January 13th, President Trump said he had called off any meetings with the Iranians and promised that unspecified help is on its way. That statement alone told you everything about the direction things were heading. Now, before we get to the military strikes, the war, and what all of this means for immigration, you have to understand what the United States had already done to visa policy, because the truth is, the crackdown on Iranian nationals entering the U.S. started well before any missiles were fired. On December 16th, 2025, President Trump signed a proclamation that dramatically expanded U.S. travel restrictions, effective January 1st, 2026, representing the most comprehensive travel ban expansion in years. Iran remained under a full travel ban with extremely limited exceptions. Let that sink in. A full travel ban, not a partial restriction, not extra paperwork, a near total suspension. Unlike the 2017 travel ban, which still allowed F, M, and J visa holders, students, and exchange visitors to enter the United States, the 2025 ban suspended virtually all visa categories for Iranian nationals. Visitor visas for tourism or business, unavailable. Think about what that means in practice. Iranian students who had been studying in American universities, building careers, building lives, suddenly faced a policy environment where their ability to return after a visit home was in serious question. Families separated, couples who couldn't attend each other's weddings, professionals who couldn't travel for work. According to advocacy organizations, over 40,000 Iranians were directly impacted by previous travel bans, with visa issuances declining by more than 100,000 during the first Trump administration. And the 2026 version is far more sweeping. But it didn't stop there. In February 2026, Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced visa restrictions against 18 Iranian regime officials and telecommunications industry leaders, as well as their immediate family members, targeting individuals complicit in serious violations of human rights, particularly in blocking Iranians' freedom of expression during the protests. The State Department said these individuals were being targeted for the crackdown and the communications blackout, accusing them of inhibiting the right of Iranians to free expression and peaceful assembly. Now here's something important. On the surface, this sounds like it's only targeting Iranian government officials. And yes, most of the 18 people named don't travel to the United States anyway. While the practical impact is largely symbolic, most designees do not travel to America. The bans signal that the Trump administration will continue to use immigration tools to advance human rights objectives overseas. But the downstream effects are real for ordinary people. For multinational companies, the move raises new compliance questions. U.S. subsidiaries of foreign firms must ensure none of their directors, shareholders, or counterparties appears on the expanding visa restriction list. Global mobility teams should anticipate additional administrative screening for Iranian nationals. In other words, even if you are a perfectly law-abiding Iranian professional, the net is getting wider. the scrutiny is getting more intense. And the people processing your visa application are operating in an environment where every connection to Iran is being examined more carefully. Now let's talk about the bigger picture, because what happened in February and March of 2026 is something that most immigration channels haven't even fully caught up to. In late February, the United States had deployed its largest military buildup in the Middle East in decades. Iran's foreign minister warned that a U.S. strike would trigger a devastating war and could ignite a broader conflict. On February 17th, Iran temporarily closed the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow mouth of the Persian Gulf through which a fifth of all the world's traded oil passes. On February 24th, during the State of the Union address, Trump accused Iran of reviving efforts to build nuclear weapons and advanced missile capabilities that could threaten the U.S., Europe, and U.S. bases overseas, and warned the country was prepared to act if necessary. There were talks happening, multiple rounds. Oman was mediating. The Iranian foreign minister was saying a historic agreement was within reach. And then it all collapsed. On February 28th, 2026, Israel and the United States began a series of strikes against Iran, targeting its leadership, nuclear program, ballistic missile capabilities, and armed forces. The surprise attack, launched during the nuclear negotiations, killed Supreme Leader Khamenei, other Iranian officials, and civilians. Subsequent attacks damaged military bases, government facilities, schools, hospitals, and cultural heritage sites. In retaliation, Iran launched hundreds of drones and ballistic missiles at targets in Israel and at U.S. military bases in Bahrain, Jordan, Kuwait, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. This is not speculation. This is not a hypothetical. This happened. And for anyone with an Iranian connection trying to navigate U.S. immigration, the effects are immediate, severe, and likely to get worse before they get better. Let's break down exactly what the current visa situation looks like. The full travel ban that went into effect on January 1st, 2026 covers virtually every visa category for Iranian nationals. There is no separate waiver application. Individuals must apply for a visa and present their case during the interview, hoping the consular officer will exercise discretion in their favor. For most people, that discretion is not being exercised. Any past or future association with a country under such a severe travel warning can trigger additional review by U.S. immigration authorities, including USCIS and consular officers. This heightened scrutiny is part of national security protocols and can result in prolonged processing times or requests for additional evidence. There are very limited exceptions. Ethnic and religious minorities from Iran, including Zoroastrians, Baha'i, Christians, Jews, Kurds, and other recognized minority groups, may have limited exception possibilities. However, applicants must provide documentation of their minority status, which can be challenging and potentially dangerous. Green card holders are not affected by the ban itself. People with valid visas issued before January 1st, 2026 are not having those visas revoked. Lawful permanent residents can continue to travel. But if you travel outside the U.S. and you are Iranian and your visa was issued after that cutoff date, re-entry is a serious legal question right now. And the situation is not static. It is moving fast. The United States is also not alone in doing this. This is a global shift. Canada introduced significant changes to its visa policies for Iranian nationals in March 2026. Iranian nationals currently outside Canada face suspensions of their visitor visas. Despite holding valid permits, they will not be allowed to enter during this restriction period. The visa application process has also become more stringent, with increased documentation requirements leading to longer waiting times and higher rejection rates. Australia's Home Affairs Minister introduced the Arrival Control Determination on March 25, 2026, suspending visitor visas for Iranian nationals for 6 months, with the possibility of extension depending on the security situation. The United Kingdom has implemented more extensive security screening and background checks for all Iranian visa applicants, resulting in delays and increased rejection rates. Fewer Iranian students are enrolling in UK universities as a direct result. Even the UAE, which has long been a gateway for Iranian tourists and business people, has significantly tightened security measures. Iranian nationals are now subject to lengthy security interviews and additional background checks at UAE airports. The Golden Visa program has been suspended for Iranian applicants until further notice. And the UAE has expedited deportations for individuals linked to Iranian-sanctioned entities. So across the United States, Canada, Australia, the United Kingdom, and the UAE simultaneously, the window for Iranian nationals to travel, study, work, or relocate has narrowed to an almost unprecedented degree. Now, what does this mean for you specifically, depending on your situation? If you are an Iranian student currently in the United States, you need to think very carefully before traveling outside the country for any reason. Even a brief trip home to see family carries real risk of not being able to return. Immigration attorneys across the country are giving the same advice right now. Stay in the U.S. if you can. Do not travel unless it is absolutely necessary. And if you do need to travel, consult an attorney first, not after. If you are an Iranian national living abroad who has been planning to apply for a U.S. visa, a student visa, a work visa, a tourist visa, or to reunite with family, you need to understand that the environment is the most restrictive it has ever been. Applications are still being accepted. Interviews can still be scheduled. But the likelihood of approval for most categories right now is extremely low, and the process is longer and more uncertain than at any point in recent history. If you are an Iranian American, a U.S. citizen with Iranian heritage, you are not directly affected by the travel ban in terms of entering the United States. But you are affected in a different way. U.S. citizens should not travel to Iran for any reason. Iran remains a level 4 do not travel destination. U.S. nationals are at significant risk of questioning, arrest, and detention in Iran. And if you are an Iranian national who currently holds a green card, a lawful permanent resident, you have more protection than most. But you are not completely immune. Past or future association with Iran can trigger additional review. Attempts to hide travel history, family connections, or financial interests in Iran are a serious mistake. U.S. immigration agencies have sophisticated methods for detecting omissions, which can result in accusations of fraud or misrepresentation. Transparency is essential right now. If you have ties to Iran, disclose them properly. The cost of getting caught hiding something is far greater than the cost of being upfront about it. Now let's talk about what is coming next, because the situation is still developing. As of late March 2026, Trump said the U.S. is in talks with Iran to end the war, though Iran's foreign ministry denied entering any formal talks. Back-channel efforts are underway, with regional players working behind the scenes to de-escalate tensions. The Strait of Hormuz is physically open, but ships are staying away because Iran continues to fire missiles and drones at vessels attempting to pass through. The head of the International Energy Agency warned that the global economy faces a major threat from the war's disruption to oil and gas flows, saying no country will be immune to the effects if the conflict continues in this direction. This is not contained. It is spreading economically, diplomatically, and in terms of how governments around the world are treating Iranian nationals on their soil. The single most important thing you can do right now, if you have any immigration case involving Iran, any visa pending, any green card application in process, any family member trying to come to the United States, is to get qualified legal help. Not from Reddit, not from a friend who went through this years ago, not from information that is a few months old, because a few months ago this situation looked completely different. Immigration laws and travel advisories can change rapidly. What was true last year may not be true in 2026. You should assume your case will take longer than average and have contingency plans for work, housing, and family. There are people right now whose entire life plans have been upended because of decisions made in Washington and Tehran over the past 4 months. Students who enrolled in American universities and cannot get back. Professionals who traveled home for a wedding and are now stuck. Families separated by policies that changed faster than anyone expected. This is the reality of where we are. The title of this video asked whether visa screening could get stricter in 2026. The honest answer is that it already has, dramatically, and depending on how the military conflict evolves, it could get tighter still. If a ceasefire is reached, if diplomatic talks succeed, if the two countries find a way to de-escalate, there is a possibility that some restrictions could ease over time. But given the scale of what has happened, strikes that killed Iranian leadership, retaliatory missile attacks on U.S. military bases across the Middle East, a conflict that has disrupted global oil supplies, a return to the pre-2025 visa environment for Iranian nationals would require a fundamental shift in geopolitics that does not appear imminent. What you can do is stay informed. Watch credible sources, not just social media, not just one side of the story. Follow the State Department's official travel advisories. Follow the news out of the nuclear talks if and when they resume. And if your immigration case is time-sensitive, do not wait for the situation to clarify before taking action. The people who navigate these moments successfully are not the ones who wait and hope things go back to normal. They are the ones who understand what is actually happening, make decisions based on current reality, and get the right advice before a problem becomes a crisis. Share this video with anyone you know who needs to understand what is happening right now. Drop a comment if you have questions. We read every single one. And subscribe, because this situation is going to keep moving, and we are going to keep you updated as it does.